Boom. Hey, hey. Welcome, everybody. Another Tactical Tuesday.
Hey,
Somehow
welcome
my
everybody.
all right, my camera was off. It's back on. I'm echoing. We're just gonna keep on going. Welcome to Tactical Tuesday, guys. Super special guest tonight who I just love to hear his rants. And so this is like a great treat for me because not only do I get to hear the ranting, but I get to like poke the bear a little bit every once in a while. So those of you probably know him, but in case you don't, this is Arlen Dahlin. He is a long time standing investor. So when I say long time, I don't mean 9 years. I mean a long time investor who's been through the gamut. So when I was brand new, he was already established as a successful investor. So, I've aged myself. Now I've aged you, Arlen. So you're
We're
welcome.
we're old.
We're old. Yeah. Like I said, we've
We got
we've
some
both
gray.
changed a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, super happy to have you here. So Arlen, you've been in Edmonton investing. Have all your properties always been in Alberta?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So and 31 years you've been investing, is that right?
Yeah. That's scary. Yes.
Right? Yeah, that's crazy. Okay, so here we are. I mean, I love all of your rants, and there's very few people that I will read their stuff and agree with pretty much everything that they say. Um, because I'm an opinionated person too, and so it just doesn't work that way. You don't often agree with everybody, but I always agree with your take on things. And so when I saw your post yesterday about multifamily versus single family, now I'm just gonna put my rant out there. Hey guys, welcome. Say hi. I'm just gonna make sure that this is. I sometimes we can see comments, Arlen, and sometimes we can't. Just depends on Facebook's mood, I guess. So I'm just gonna see if we see them today, and if not, Angie will be popping them in the chat for us. Um, but this is okay. So this is my thing about multifamily. I don't invest in multifamily, so I don't know. And I hear, this debate between single family, multifamily, and I hear it often from those who have been in multifamily for, the lifelong term of a whole 7 years, or a whole 9 years, or 8 years, or 4 years, and they're singing the praises of multifamily over single family. Or we have those that are single family, like me, have never been into multifamily, and so I really have no freeness of speech to say what's best, one or the other. And I really appreciated your post. So, Arlen, you've been in both for how long?
I started in single family in 1995 and I started in multifamily in 2002.
Okay. So, a long time. So, your portfolio, you started, what is that, 10 years ahead? Or I guess 8 years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you hold some of those buildings still?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have a pretty good, view from like a 30-foot view of single and multi. So if I had to ask you in one word, which is better? Which one?
There's not a better. There's plus and minuses to both.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, guys. So can I just say, can we now settle the debate once and for all? Somebody who's been doing this for longer than maybe almost anyone in Canada that we know in our circles has been doing both. And there's pros and cons to each. So what about though, Arlen, when I say, if I have one house and it goes vacant, then I have 100% vacancy. But if I have one unit in a 10 unit building and it goes, then I only have 10% vacancy. So clearly multifamily has got to be better.
That's the one statement I got a pet peeve for because some ways it makes some logic sense, but it really doesn't. Like if you own 10 single family houses or townhouses or whatever, and one goes vacant, it's 10% vacancy. It's the same thing. It makes no difference,
Makes no
right?
difference. Yeah.
So that one statement always just drives me crazy.
And yet we hear it time and time and time again. So um I won't put it how you put it in your in your post yesterday, but really it's six of one, half dozen of another.
Right.
Vacancy is vacancy. It's all dependent on how many doors that you have.
Yep.
So if you were a newer investor starting out, now we know single family in most of Canada is, we're priced out of it as investors, as humans. Most of us are priced out of it. There's still pockets, there's still a single family here and there that we can buy that still works. But a lot of people feel that we have to move into multifamily because we're priced out of single family. Do you have an opinion on that?
I don't really see it that way. I mean, I've bought, I don't know how many a number of single family just in the last 12 months. Um, Again, it's, there's not a right and wrong. A lot of the multifamily that people buy, they get sent performas, and those performas, although they're not bull crap, a lot of the stuff that's in a performa you don't see. So assuming that the building does way better than a single family is a fool's game until you get the experience in both. For example, let's use an example of a performa on an apartment building. It could show X amount, 5, 6 cap rate, or this much positive cash flow per month. But what's not factored into portfolio, I mean, into a performa is deferred maintenance. So use an example, you need a new roof within the next 5 years. Well, that could be 50,000.
Right.
Now, if your
Yeah.
cash flow was 2 grand on this multifamily, how much monthly cash flow does just that one roof eat up? So they're not necessarily as strong as some people think they are, and lots of them are good, but it's learning and understanding the numbers and what goes into it. So,
So we could, devil's advocate say the same thing. Well, in single family, we get a performa and it doesn't show us the deferred maintenance either. So if I need a new roof, I don't see that either. So what's the difference?
uh, well, if single family, a mistake is not so catastrophic, right?
Mm,
Like if you have to come up with, well, obviously, if you bought a single family, you'll know if the roof is tired, if the shingles curled, it's pretty straightforward. But let's just say you're even foolish enough not to catch that, which I don't think anybody would be. Well, maybe that's $10,000. Someone could, if they're tight in a worst case scenario, they could probably just charge 10 grand on a credit card and handle the problem and move on. It's a little painful, but you did. Some people, if they're strapped and they just strap together enough money, just enough money to buy their 12-plex, and then 9 months later they get hit with a balcony expense, replacing balconies or a roof or something, that could be 50, 60, 70,000, which might be a little bit too much for someone to manage.
yeah.
Again, not trying to scare people away. That's not the intent. But it's just that if you're brand new, the risks on multifamily are much higher than they are on single family. It's not a matter
Yeah.
of one's better than another. It's just when you're brand new, the risks are just so much higher. Most people will not blow themselves up buying one single family and cutting their teeth. You start small. A tenant trashes a unit, you can manage it, you can cover the expenses and move on. Might been a little bit painful. A furnace dies. You now understand, maybe it's important to have some money set aside for emergencies, but that furnace cost you 5,000. It wasn't a boiler that cost you 75,000, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's if the market turns, and like Tiff and I both went through the 2008 market crash here. The market turns, rents drop. Maybe your single family went from plus $200 a month to maybe minus $200 a month. You're not happy about it, but you can manage it. But if you have an apartment of 40 doors where you drop 300 a month, that may put you into bankruptcy or put you offside with your lender, having them give you a $300,000 cash call that you got 30 days to pay.
Yeah. Yeah. Like even the just even talking about that, just like the stress hits me, and that's not even my scenario, but I just can't even imagine that. So I think we agree like that multifamily has an amazing place in an
Yeah,
investor's portfolio. It can be beautiful, but the difference is that as a brand new investor, we're going to get hurt. We're going to learn lessons that we never wanted to learn, scars, battle wounds, all of those things. Do we want to learn it on something that is recoverable, that's not going to literally bankrupt us, versus something that if it does go wrong, we literally could lose everything and take years to recover? So that's what you're saying, right? Is
right.
it's not that one's better than the other. They both have their place. And if we're going to learn on something, we might be wiser to learn on something we can recover from if we do it wrong.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it's just a great place to start. I mean, I know because I get lots of messages from people over the years and get asked for help and stuff. And I know a number of people that have been in real estate groups, and nothing wrong with the real estate groups at all. Like a lot of them are great, but they're so stuck on doing a multifamily that I know I can think of one lady off the top of my head for 4 years. She's still done nothing because she doesn't have the ability to raise the money for a multifamily and she doesn't have the horsepower herself, but she's so stuck on a multifamily that I remember that was probably 3 years ago. I brought her just as a favor. I brought her two deals on townhouses that were a really good deal. The numbers really work, and I encouraged her to buy those, but she refused because she was stuck on multifamily. Well, if she would have just bought those two properties, she would have started her learning curve. But not just that. From then till now, I calculated out her net worth would have already grown over $100,000.
Right.
But she's
Right.
stuck on sometimes you get that thing in an investor mind where you're grade school if you're doing single family and you're Harvard if you're doing multifamily. Well, I don't know how much that is true.
Yeah. I I I stand by the fact that I've seen more investors lose their shirts in multifamily than I have in single family.
Yes,
And it's purely just because of what you said. The stakes are higher. So, yeah, the gains might be bigger, but when the losses hit, they hit harder. So, for myself personally, just from what I've seen, and there's no number attached to it, but just I see more people lose their shirts and then they're out of the game and they're, trying to recover. Going big does not mean always winning big. It can also mean winning or losing big as well.
right.
So this
Like
lady,
I'm not trying to
yeah, go
scare
ahead.
anybody out of multifamily. That's not
No.
like multifamily can be awesome, but it doesn't matter if it's real estate, businesses, restaurants, stock investing. No matter what investment you do, you're going to have some wins and losses. You're going to do some stuff really good and you're going to get kicked between the legs a few times and see if you survive. So if you start a little bit smaller, those battle wounds aren't as drastic. Are there exceptions to the rule? Are there people that can step into multifamily day one and do okay? There always is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm never going to say it's way offside to do that. But getting some experience hands on, starting with single family, is just a lower risk way to do things. And I hear in a lot of groups too, people say, well, the best way to start is to partner, like contribute your capital to somebody else with a multifamily. And that's bullshit because
Yeah.
that other person that's experienced is the one doing and taking care of everything. Yeah, you're
Right.
watching them. Watching them isn't the same as getting real experience. No different than people watching you and I today, Tiffany, doesn't give them experience. It gives them good information, but not experience. If you want
Yeah.
experience, you got to actually do it yourself.
Yeah. I'm always that. So I don't know how to swim. I literally like I can I can doggy paddle. I can get from one spot to another or whatever, but I don't know how to actually swim. And I always think to myself, it's real estate is like learning to swim. Like if I wanted to learn to swim, yeah, I can go online. I can read all about it. I can, the front crawl, you do this, and the back, you do, and in theory, I've got it in my head. But if I'm just watching someone else do it, okay, I think I've got it, and I jump in the water in the deep end, thinking that means that now I've got it, I'm in big trouble because that's not going to work. I have to get in the water. I have to actually learn, like, get my hands dirty with it. And so I think that that's such a good lesson in saying you can get your hands dirty in single family, and a lot of those skills, a lot of those things that you learn are directly transferable into multifamily. So it's not like you're like, well, now I have to learn a whole new game and I might as well just start there. These skills that you learn are directly transferable, and it's a whole lot less that you'll have to learn with a whole lot less gamble.
Correct.
Yes. Okay, so lower cost to entry is one main thing. Having our mistakes be not so huge. I love the point about you can get started a lot faster. So multifamily, we got to raise hundreds of thousands of dollars. We have to have our numbers pretty darn sure in order to raise that money. And there's a lot more money needing to be raised. So a lot more people are going to need to see credibility. What would you do? Is there a number? How many properties should someone have under their belts, or what timeline should they have under their belt before they make that jump?
I don't think there's really a number. I guess it varies from person to person, and some of it comes back to their just maybe the skills that they had prior to starting in real estate. Like, do they have strong interpersonal skills? Do they have strong sales skills? Do they have strong business skills? Some people are lucky enough to start. They already have some of those basic skills, and some do not have any of those skills. So
Right.
it can really vary. It's more of an individual thing. And I'm also careful not to ever cap somebody, like hold somebody back based on a preconception that I have. Because I always
Mhm.
say there's always exceptions to the rule. There's some superstars, maybe they buy two single family and off they go. Next thing you knew, they buy a 60 unit and they rock star it. There's others that
Mhm.
could do seven single family and they get into their first building and really struggle. So there's
Right.
no black and white, there's no right and wrong. Everybody's got to kind of run with their gut, what works for them. But I can say for myself, prior to getting into multifamily, just what I did in single family was enough to put somebody comfortably into retirement without even doing multifamily. So
Yeah.
it's not a necessity. And again, I don't want to come across like I'm dialing down the benefits of multifamily because I'm not.
No.
I mean, there's definitely benefits to the scale. Like if you have the ability to put together money and close on a really strong 60 unit apartment building, that's a lot easier than trying to get the equivalent maybe 30 single family properties. That's a lot more work. So there's definitely advantages for sure. But,
Yeah.
some of the biggest mistakes I see people in multifamily are one, weighing too much on a pro forma. Like I'm always saying, I did that when I started. I'm being straight up honest. The first few smaller 12 suite buildings I bought, I did really well on. I bought them, I sold them because I knew that I didn't want to own buildings that small. But the only reason why I came out and made really good money on them was not my skills. It was I was in an up market. The market took care of me. It was not my
Okay.
skills. I like to say it was, but it wasn't. But I learned a
Right.
lot. That's those early days I was going off of performance. And I remember if I relate it to a story on multifamily, I've wrote a post about this before. My very best deal I did on multifamily, when I say very best deal, I mean a building bought significantly below market value, probably the strongest performer, was the worst building I ever bought.
Huh.
The best building I ever bought was the worst performer. I paid over market for it, knowingly would rather have not paid over market, but I knew it was worth the buy because now I knew what was important, and that was the building that did the best for me. And it was about 10 years ago. The partner retired. When we sold that building, it broke a record for the sale price of a 4 story or 3 story. It was a 74 unit building, but that on a performa was the worst multifamily I bought.
So how do you know the difference? So if I'm looking at a performer right now and I'm like, hey, this looks really great, and then I take into account what you just said. So how do I know the difference then on what made the difference between one being a winner and one a loser?
Well, there's a number of things. One is you can look at an apartment building, kind of look like you look at a single family home, and that is one you're looking at deferred maintenance. I mean, because everything on an apartment is just, put an extra zero on the end for the expense, whether it's balconies, windows, roof, all that kind of stuff. What's coming up? It doesn't mean something that needs all that stuff isn't worth buying, but you need to keep that in mind. Everybody does that by nature when they look at a single family property. Second is area. What area are you buying in, right? Like my
What do you
best
buy?
building. What's that?
What do you buy?
What do you mean? What do I buy?
What area do you buy? Like, are you an ABC? Are you
I don't know. I mean, probably a B, B plus, I guess is what you'd say. Like like one of my best buildings happened to be in Castle Downs. So the area was strong and I didn't have a lot of competition. Like Tiffany, Edmonton, if you're in Queen Mary Park, you got a ton of competition. If you're on 149th Street, 156th Street, you got a ton of competition. You learn that white space is a big deal. Now, I'll use a story with that. So I bought it was two I don't even know I don't know what a year. I'm too old to know what year that was. It was around 2000,
okay?
2002, 2003. I bought a multifamily in Stony Plain, a small town just outside of Edmonton. I bought it three-quarters of the way through the building process, and I was able to buy it wholesale. Why did I buy that one? Because I was green on multifamily, and it was just something that was on my plate, and I wanted to close, and I was crazy. That ended up being one of my best performers, not because I was so sharp, but I remember when we went through the '08 crash, all my other buildings, I was softening the rents. That one I never did. And I couldn't understand why. So I remember calling the property manager, my property manager, and go, could you send me some rental comps for that complex? And they go, sure. They sent it to me. I print off all the comps and I look and I'm mad. Why am I
Because you're
mad? I
way
go, what is this crap they sent me? This is nothing like what I own. Like mine was a townhouse complex. They're sending me condos. They're sending me apartment buildings. They're sending me stuff that's not the same as mine. So I let a day pass. Don't want to blow up a relationship. I don't want to phone them and blast them. So I just phoned them up. I said, I'm confused. What you sent me for comps, they're not comps. And then my property manager said, well, that's all there is. Then the light bulb went off. I'm in a white
welcome.
space. I'm the only game in town for that property. And that's why it's doing so well, because I don't have the
Yeah,
competition. So, did I buy that because I was so skilled and so smart? No, I got lucky. But I
yeah.
never let that lesson pass now. I like a white space.
And so this is what I so appreciate about long time investors is there becomes a pattern recognition. So you don't even know maybe why you know that this is a better building than that building or why you're more interested in this one that but it's like intuitively the trauma maybe from past bad buys and the positive reinforcement from good you look at it and you go okay this you know what this one is and you don't necessarily even know why but that pattern recognition of you know what I like being the only deal in town that is now something that if you can actually quantify it and put it down on a piece of paper now this is something that can be part of your system but yet you didn't even that wasn't part of your plan you just learned that
Nope.
through some things you learn that are positive and some things you learn that are negative. This one was a positive, so that's awesome.
Right.
Do you still have
Right.
it?
Actually, I just sold it 2 years ago, and it was
Did you?
actually one of my favorite assets. It's because I'm
Yeah.
doing some pivoting right now, and because the partner was old. You got to remember, I started so long ago that my partners were 20 years older than me. So my oldest current joint venture partner is 86, and
That's
it's
amazing.
it's strange. None of them are asking me to sell. I'm like, oh my goodness, we should start selling before they're pushing daisies, right? Like it was probably
Right.
a good time now is now.
It would be. Yeah,
Yeah,
it would be, or at least have a
yeah.
really good plan. I remember when I had a guy that he was pushing 90 and he wanted to invest with me. And when I had first been trying to raise capital, I had met him and he was kind of actually a little bit of a I don't know, he was inappropriate. And so I was like, yeah, no thanks, like whatever. but he kept on pursuing and pursuing and pursuing. So finally one day I said to him, and this was by the time I didn't need his money at that time anymore. And I was like, fine, if you want to invest with, you can send me this much money at this. It was like, I think I offered him 5% on his money. And like, I just kind of, whatever. That guy, he ended up staying an investor for, I don't know, like 11, 12 years. And I mean, like I said, he was in his late 80s when we met in Toronto. And yeah, I was just like, I expected this to last like 2 years. But yeah, it certainly doesn't. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, guys, if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. We will ask Arlen. So I have questions for you though, Arlen. So
Sure.
what about liquidity? What you mentioned, that being a benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I found by accident my single family to be, I would say, like almost like an extra insurance policy. In other words, if I needed to liquidate and get some cash in 30 or 60 days, I could always refinance as long as I've owned it long enough that have some equity, refinance a single family or sell a single family. Because you remember, your payout penalties usually aren't that high on single family if you're to sell. I mean, I'm usually on variables, but if even if you're on fixed, it's not going to be like on a multifamily, it could be a six-figure payout penalty.
Yeah.
And if you're to sell a multifamily, if it was an absolute fire sale, when everything went perfect, it would take 4 months, 3 to 4 months to sell it. So, like for me, when I went through the '08 crash, I was able to refinance and sell. I didn't have to do too many, but a few to recapitalize my buildings and keep everything going. But if I had all multifamily, I wouldn't have had that option, and it would have created a real problem for me. So I had
Okay,
that
so let me be
flexibility.
clear on that. In '08, some of like everything went down. So for those of you that, '08 was a bad year almost everywhere, but in Alberta, it was an extremely bad year. So we had shot up for a couple of years straight, like ridiculously. And then kind of like what we're seeing in Ontario right now, in Toronto, especially, or the GTA, where, prices went crazy and then they took a sharp decline. So here we are sitting there with all these properties that we've counted on rents being a certain amount. We've counted on our refinances. In fact, I know we refinanced a couple of properties far above what they were worth a year later. So, never mind cash flow issues. And so what you're saying is you at that time, you had both multifamily and single family. The multifamilies are really hard to, reposition quickly, like liquidity
Yeah,
wise, we're slow. So you were able to take and use the tool of the single family, refinance or maybe sell or do whatever you needed to do in those, and then be able to support the multis.
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I also
that's
look
huge.
at, I mean, again, I bring out a lot of truths, and sometimes it doesn't make me look better. Sometimes it might make me look worse. But because I've been doing this so long, a lot of people assume that after 30 years, I live off cash flow. I have never lived off cash flow. I have never lived off cash flow. So cash to live off cash flow, it's possible, of course, but I always call it the slow boat to China. So, like I had a full-time job from 95 till 2002. In that time, I bought over 100 properties. It wasn't the cash flow that got me to leave my job. It was the ability to refinance. I could refinance typically one. I owned them long enough now, and they appreciated. I'm able to refinance one property, say put 100,000 in my pocket, tax free because it's a refinance, and that funded
Yeah,
me for the whole next year.
right.
Now,
Yeah,
if I waited for cash flow to get real cash flow, like almost every property you buy shows cash flow, but then there's what it shows and then what's real, because real means there's turnover, there's damage, there's repairs, and it usually disappears if you only have 20% down. So
yep,
to get real cash flow, what means that you got to get those mortgages way down, probably 50% loan to value or less over time. And to me, if I have that kind of money in equity, that's not a good steward of my money because technically, mortgage money is say 3.5 right now to 4% money. I can do better than 3.5 to 4% on my money. So I might as well extract it and get higher returns. That's why I've never had monthly, like lived off monthly cash flow. Like you think of it, I've been in it this long. Technically, I could have X amount of properties paid off free and clear right now. So I could live off monthly cash flow. But I
Yeah.
chose to leverage up, buy more assets. There's no right and wrong to that. It's what people choose to do, but mathematically, that does make the most sense to me.
Yeah. So, and I know we had this conversation too on Facebook the other day because I was like, pay down your mortgages, but it comes down to what is your goals? Like, what is your lifestyle? What are you trying to support? What's your risk tolerance? All that kind of stuff. And those things are important. So, okay. So we have a couple of questions. We have, what happens when one of your partners does die on that big, apartment building? We've got, do you stabilize your multifamilies, or do you like push up appreciation and then refinance, or do you just leave them? And okay, that one we've answered. So, but that having been said, tonight is our first night, guys, of having a change of time. So we have been doing Technical Tuesday since 2018. It has always been an hour long. And then we move over into our laser session with our Ignited members where we do, keep on with the guests and we do question and answer and hot seat stuff and figure out, individual problems. So we are now, as of this week, tonight's the first night, we are now doing a half-hour Tactical Tuesday. And then at 5:30, which I am now late by 3 minutes, we will be moving into our Ignited sessions. So for those of you watching us on Tactical Tuesday in Fearless, Arlen, thank you. You're going to stick with us and join us over in Ignited. So don't go anywhere, please. But awesome information. If you guys want to contact Arlen, he's on Facebook. You can use Messenger there. He's on Facebook. Don't bug him too much. That's going to be my caveat because he's very generous with his time, but also save it for when you actually really need questions answered because he gets bugged a lot. I don't know that for sure, Darlene. It's not like you've ever said that or anything, but I can just imagine. So yeah, save it for when you actually need it. But he is on Facebook, best place to meet him. I want to just throw in one other thing. If you're looking into crypto, for a lot of people, that's just a curiosity. Arlen's a smart guy. He's been around a long time. He's moved into crypto. If you have questions about it, if you want to do something like that, just follow him on Facebook and see what he's doing because he posts a lot about it. And if I had time and energy, I would definitely be following him a little closer just to see what he's up to and don't recreate the wheel, copy someone who's already doing it. And so that's the guy that I'd be following. So anyways, thank you so much, Arlen. You're awesome. You were so muted. I expected a little more.
We got to get awesome. Used to. I haven't been singing out the rude one-liners yet, but they may come.
Oh my goodness. Okay, can I just say the one? Okay, I know I'm over time. I'm not very used to doing half an hour, but I just want to say this. Okay, so you said when you hear speakers or investors selling and pushing only multi-family properties by saying if you own one, blah blah blah, that little line. Put an index finger in each of your ears and say la 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 with a grin on your face, then roll your eyes so hard that you check out your own ass. That literally made me laugh out loud. Oh my goodness. So that's Arlen, guys, in a nutshell, right there. All right. We're gonna hit end on this live and we will see all of you Igniteds jump on in. We are waiting right here in our Zoom room.